Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be an upgrades video. In today's upgrades video, we are taking a look once again at my new HK MR556 A1. And before we get this video started, I wanted to give a quick shout out to this video's sponsor, which is Seal One. Seal One makes a variety of cleaning and maintenance supplies for firearms. They even make bow care products, including an all-purpose cleaner, lubricant, and grease for any sort of cams or anything like that on your bow. I'm super pumped about this partnership because I have been using Seal One products for years before this sponsorship, and I absolutely love it. A favorite of mine is the paste. It's kind of like a middle of the road between oil and grease, and it does a really good job. I enjoy it. Smells good. You can't beat a CLP that smells good, and it's also bio-based and non-toxic. They have given me a pretty substantial discount for you guys to use, which is FF-25. So if you use FF-25 at checkout, that is going to give you 25% off of your order. You guys know the deal. When I like a gun a lot, you will generally see it featured on the channel within a short amount of time, and that's exactly what's going on here. I got together a bunch of upgrades actually before bringing the MR556 home from the gun shop that I work at. It was sitting there for a little bit as I was paying on it and other things, so I had the time to kind of just get everything together that I wanted to use on the MR556. Now, I know there's probably going to be a lot of reeing going on down in the comment section that I did not keep the factory components on this gorgeous HK MR556, but I promise all of these upgrades were done with a dash of taste, and it just fits me perfectly. Now, I really, really enjoy this rifle, and we had a pretty good range day with it. Starting from the back portion of the rifle here, I switched out the factory HK MR556 stock. The factory HK stock, it's got that nostalgic cool factor. It's stupid expensive, and it's not something that I'm going to sell. It's something that I'm going to keep. Maybe I use it on a different build, whatever. But in this case, I don't, one, think it looks that great on the MR556. I just think it's ginormous. And unless you're really going for some sort of a clone build, I would not recommend keeping this stock. And you guys remember me mentioning in the first impressions video, really the only main reason why I just couldn't even use this stock is the sling attachment points here on the rear of the stock. I just kept clocking myself in the face with it, and that made it very much unenjoyable, and I hated the design of this stock. So I ended up switching it out to a B5 SOP mod stock. I think this just adds to the vibes of the MR556. Looks great, still super practical, fits really nicely on the buffer tube. The only thing I will say is that the HK stock is slightly longer up in the portion that goes into the castle nut, and in this case with the B5, you're going to stop right about here. So you'll still see the threads. It's not going to go all the way down against the castle nut as the HK factory stock does, but not really a huge deal there. Still have a really nice cheek weld, and now even better, I don't have anything nailing me in the cheek when I go to shoulder the rifle, and it just works great. I also now have a QD point here on the rear of the stock, which is really what I would prefer. Not the end of the world to have to loop the sling around, but again, the QD is definitely the way. I did also ditch the Magpul K2 Plus grip. You guys heard me mention in that last video, that's just, I'm not a fan of that little rubbery texture on the grip. Would really much prefer a polymer grip like this. So I have on here a BCM grip. Now this is the one without the beaver tail, and it does also include a section here to give you that filler. So that way on the factory trigger guard, you're not really digging your finger into that small hole that's between the trigger guard and the grip itself. So this is a nice grip, but I'm gonna tell you guys my first complaint so far about the rifle, and there will be two in this video. The ambi safety. Guys, I have never been a fan of ambi safeties on ARs. I think they're absolutely unnecessary, especially when you're looking at a left-handed shooter can easily get to the safety with their trigger finger, and they don't need an ambidextrous safety. So I see absolutely no need for this, and all this does is get in the way. And unfortunately, this is a proprietary part, so this is not even something that you can easily switch out. You'd have to buy one specifically for the MR556, which I may do here in the near future. I love these grips because without the beaver tail, I can choke up really high onto that pistol grip and just get even more control over my rifle. So that's my style of grip. That's how I grip any other AR-15. And when I had the Magpul K2 Plus grip on here, I actually didn't have as much of an issue with this because it had a beaver tail. So I wasn't able to get up as high, but because I wasn't able to get up as high, I was getting no issues with the safety. Now that there's no beaver tail and I can get up very high, if my hand is where I want it to be, I end up just clocking that safety, and it really wants to get in the way, especially with gloves. So I had to kind of modify my grip a little bit lower than I would have liked in order to get that selector to fire, or I would just simply lift up a little bit on my hand and then grab the gun. But definitely a speed issue here, and one that I will be changing in the future. So not a huge deal, but definitely something that's a little bit frustrating. Now for the optic of choice, I did pull my EOTech EXPS3-0, which is the quick detach night vision capable model, off of my night vision build temporarily for this MR556. So this rifle, I'm going to talk about it in a bit. This is kind of like stage one of the upgrades, and I will be doing a completely different overhaul here very soon, and I will talk about that in a bit. But the EOTech ran great on here, and I probably will be picking up a second one of these so that way I can run it on the night vision build and the MR556 without having to change my zero every time. But I will say, just going from that build, because the rail is higher than usual, the rail puts any standard optic at about a lower 1/3 height from your eye. I had a Unity riser that this was sitting on, and it actually lined up pretty good on this rail. I wasn't that far off of my zero, so that was pretty cool. I really like that, and that's just what you're going to see with the HK top rail being a little higher. So the EOTech ran great. The speed out of this optic on the MR556 was phenomenal. It did a great job. Now, for the sights, these are some accessories that I actually got sent to me for the video from Samson Manufacturing. So Samson Manufacturing makes these aluminum sights. They do have steel inserts here where they go on the rail, and these are also the quick pop-up options. So they are spring-loaded, and you push this button here and they pop right up. You have a 0 to 200 aperture, and then you also have the ability to have, I would say, probably about a 300 to 400 meter aperture here. That's just a little bit tinier, but I'm typically using the 0 to 200. Easily adjustable, and also I have an HK style front sight, and what that simply means is that the ears of the front sight, instead of being like a standard AR-15 front sight where you can see they flip outward, the HK style flips inward. Now, the sights that I originally had on here were the Midwest Industry sights. I've used these on almost everything that I own, and they are phenomenal. The Samson sights are very good sights, but I will say I had just a minor point of criticism out of the box, and that was actually the fit and finish with how it fit on the rail. I'm really nitpicking here, but you guys know I'm always just honest and unbiased. The front sight does sit ever so slightly canted on that rail, and I know it's not the rail because I tried other sights just to make sure, and it's definitely that front sight just kind of dipping up a bit on one side, and I've been having a major issue with them loosening up. Now, I'm also very, very tight to my other upgrade here, which is my light, and you can see there it's obviously it's a little bit tougher to get to that, but I was able to tighten them down. They did come loose one time, and the rear and the front are now both tight. So as far as how they performed at the range, they performed great. Absolutely no issues there. It was just one little point that I noticed where I'm like, man, you know, at the price the sights come out at, I would like to see them a little bit more leveled and a little bit more just fit and finish underneath so that you're not seeing it up a little bit on the left or right side. I was going to wait and see if they zeroed properly, which they did. So I'm not really harping on it too much there. If they wouldn't have zeroed, then you guys would be hearing a different story from me. I did go with their Samson stubby, I think it's like a 2.5-inch grenade vert grip here for M-LOK. This is phenomenal. This is one of my favorite vertical grips hands down, that you could ever put on M-LOK. It is aluminum, so you got a little bit of weight there, but this is a heavy rifle regardless. The grenade texturing not only looks sick, but it also does a really good job at just catching the hand. So this is a must-have upgrade on this rifle. I think it fits perfectly and just looks epic. So Samson, you guys did an incredible job on this vert grip, and I believe they did just come out with a polymer version of this as well. So if you want a little bit more of a lightweight option, that is the way to go. Love that product. It's great. Now, I also have a standard Surefire Scout up here at the top, and this is going to be their full-size version of the Scout. Now, I do have their tail cap design that allows you to have the pressure pad and then also have the button switch here on the opposite side. I think this also increases just the cool factor of the look of the rifle, and also just the practicality of being able to push this button if your pressure pad goes down. I did secure it to the rear of the rail here with some goon tape, and that worked out great. Just held everything tight. I didn't experience any issues with this thing flying off or anything like that. This is the Pro version of the Surefire Scout Light, so that is going to come with a factory mount from Surefire to go directly onto M-LOK or directly onto pick rail, depending on what you are using. Now, in this case, what I ended up doing, because of where the front sight was and just how it was a little beefier out here on the end, I was having a little bit of a hard time fitting it on the pick rail on the top. I put a polymer version of M-LOK pick rail here, and I was able to use the Pro mount and crank it backwards. And you guys can see it just lined up real nice out here in the front of the rifle, and it's just phenomenal. Absolutely love the way this light works and looks on this MR556. And now we get into the other fun complaint that I have about this rifle. So you guys can see I am running a Silencer Co. 3-prong ASR flash hider. Now, I have been primarily, actually this entire following range day that I did for this upgrades video was with the Silencer Co. Omega 300 suppressor. We're going to talk about how the rifle ran suppressed, which was all positive, but I have to talk about this bird cage that was on here. This is the remnants of the bird cage that was originally on there. And a lot of you may be wondering, geez, Joe, why the heck is that cut in half? Well, my friends, the folks over at HK, their customer service line was great, and that's surprising. Aside from all the meme lore online about HK, their customer service is actually pretty phenomenal, and every time I've called them, I've never told them that I have a channel or anything like that. I always just try to see, like, how is their customer service without knowing any of that, and it's always phenomenal. They always pick up, like, third ring and answer any questions that I have, and they're super nice about it, and I've never had any issues. I brought this rifle into the shop to just do what I thought was going to be a 30-second ordeal. I went to remove the bird cage. Now, originally, HK did not have this bird cage on here with any crush washer. It was just torqued down. So for me, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to crank that bird cage off, throw on the flash hider, which doesn't need timing. This is going to take about 3 seconds. I went to put some torque on this bird cage, and it was not moving. And when I say not moving, I mean I had a 2-foot breaker bar on top of the armorer's wrench on there, and it was not budging a millimeter. I mean, I was actually putting torque on my upper receiver to the point where I could see it actually, like, shifting a little bit. It was enough to make me nervous, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? So then I unfortunately had to plague my good bearded gunsmith friend that you see in the back of the B-roll occasionally to try to get this freaking bird cage off. I'm like, man, there's no crush washer. Maybe they rock set it. So I gave him a call and I said, hey, do you guys use any thread locker or anything like that on these bird cages? And the customer service rep said, nope, no thread lock. We just torque them on there. And I'm like, okay. We finally got this thing to move off, and there was no evidence of any thread locker on this thing at all. And in fact, you guys can see here that they actually dimpled in the A2 muzzle device with how hard they torqued that steel barrel into this aluminum piece here. I went online and I saw that it was about a 50-50. Some people had their A2 just come right off, and others, it was the exact same thing. It just would not budge. So I'm here to tell you, if you're out there trying to get this off and it's not budging, just go ahead and cut it off. It's not anything collectible. You can get it on HK Parts for about 40 bucks if you really care about maintaining the bird cage, and it's just, you're not getting it off. So just go ahead and cut it off, call it a day. Now, when I put the ASR 3-prong on there, it looks phenomenal. I think this is a phenomenal muzzle device to go with on the MR556. And as far as how the rifle ran suppressed, it ran without issue. This thing ran great suppressed. I have not validated this with HK directly, but I have read online with the forums that they use a heavier than +3 buffer in the back and spring. So you have a very heavy buffer, a very heavy spring. I was not seeing any signs of increased pressure or wear on the rifle itself. The ejection was a little bit more sporadic, but again, no issues there. I was not seeing any problems come to light. So I will talk to HK directly and just see what they say about running this gun suppressed. But with a 30 cal Silencer Co. Omega, this thing ran great. It was incredibly quiet, no issues. The one thing that I did find slightly interesting is normally you would think with any sort of a piston gun that it's going to still run very, very clean. In this case, it was bizarre. It kind of seemed like the piston was actually the cleanest part of the rifle, and just like a DI gun, the bolt carrier group, bolt and upper, was just filthy. It was only about 150 rounds, and there was no cleaning since the last range day, but it was just spitting carbon all over the place. You guys might see in the B-roll, I had a nice little money shot of carbon all over underneath my glasses, and everybody that shot it had the exact same thing. So it was dirty, and it was interesting because, again, I thought it would run cleaner. But in this case, I'm not saying that that's an issue. It still ran fine, but I just thought it was something worth mentioning. Still, no malfunctions of any type with this rifle. It runs incredibly well, and it is getting me vibing at the range. I really like it, and I'm pretty pumped with my overall purchase. This is one configuration that I wanted to showcase on the video, but I actually will be switching it out because I do want to still go with a Geisley rail. Surprisingly, the more that I use this M-LOK rail, it is a chunk, but I actually don't mind it. It feels pretty good in the hand the more that I use it. But I still want to mess with a Geisley rail. I just want to have that on there. And I think because I have that CNVDT thermal that's FDE, I want to go with an FDE kind of mismatch color scheme on that. So I'm going to go with the FDE Geisley rail, the FDE BCM grip, and a Coyote B5 SOP mod stock. And I think that is just going to bring this together incredibly well with the contrast of black accessories, and I'm pretty pumped about that. So stay tuned for those upgrades. Just got to get the funds together to buy that Geisley rail, and we will be having an additional upgrades video to see how this rifle is performing with those added upgrades. Guys, that is going to wrap this video up about my MR556 upgrades. If you guys have any other questions about this rifle or anything else on the channel, please let me know down in the comment section, and you guys know I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, head up to that description for the links to support the channel, and as always, stay tuned for more great videos coming soon.